G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today we're going to review this. Now I'm holding it with both hands because I opened it before and I can't seem to get it back in the box for this opening intro, but it's the FPV 250 Ghost V4 from Hobbyking, and I don't normally review these sort of diatone plasticky frames, but you know what, this one was $6, so it was on sale. My chair's slowly descending. We'll pop it on the bench and we'll check it out. Alright, everything's going wrong. Alright, so let's have a quick look at what we get in the kit. We've got our base plate, some motor mounts, a PDB, a whole bunch of really cool LEDs. I love these, we'll talk about these in a minute. A top plate, you get some props, which is nice, some bonus props, some little legs or standoffs. And then you also get some little wires and screws and bolts and things like that. Alright, so let's have a closer look at each part in detail. The main part of the frame is 250mm from motor to motor, and it's in an X configuration, so that should be a little bit more aerodynamic than some of the H configurations out there. It's made to run 2200 motors or 1806 motors just here. If you do want to use some smaller motors like these 1306 motors just here, that's what these little motor mounts are just here, and you can actually mount this to your motor, to your arms, and then mount the motor to that. So that's a little adapter, I guess, if you want to run some smaller motors, so it's nice to include 4 of those. You get a little cargo bay here, and this is where your PDB and your flight controller and receiver are going to fit. And also, I guess if you wanted to turn this into an FPV platform, you've got these parts at the top, at the front and the back, I guess, that you could use to build up and sit a camera or something on there like that. But they're not quite as thick, so once again, this is a budget version of a frame. Alright, the arms themselves, they are 9mm thick, or 8.9mm thick, and then you've got these little motor mounts here, and I suspect this is probably where the frame is going to break if you have a hard crash right at the edge here, and that part of the diatone is 4mm thick. So we've got some 4mm diatone there at the edge. It does come with this little sort of top brace part just here that bolts down to the top, and that's to protect some of your components that are inside if it lands upside down. And then finally, the other part of the actual frame itself is some of these diatone legs, and they simply just slide into some of these slots just here in the end of the motors. And I suspect they're going to break in some hard crashes as well, but they are 4mm thick, so we'll have to see how they hold up. I really like the 9mm thick arms just here, and I wish they had just extended that all the way out to the outsides just here. It would have made it a little bit heavier, but it would have made it a lot stronger. Alright, for those who are interested, the whole frame weight, just the diatone parts itself, and I've got it upside down here so it fits on my scales, so including the legs, the little sort of top brace here, and the motor adapters, comes in at 105 grams. So it's not the lightest frame, but then again, it is a budget frame. Now this is probably my favourite part of the whole little kit, and that's these awesome little LEDs just here, and they've got LEDs on both sides, so it's going to really light up like a Christmas tree, literally this one because it's red and green, light up like a Christmas tree when we take it outside to fly. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 LEDs on each underside of the arms, and the top side has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 on the top side. Alright, and they actually do come in 2 colours, but you can't tell that just by looking at them, so we're just going to test them just here. So, that's a green one, and then I think this might be green. Oh no, it's a red one as well, so there's a red one. And the underside, I'll cut to a shot of it later when it's all hooked up. These are white LEDs on the top. So really cool LED design. I like it how it fits in the arms, so I think that's going to look fantastic when it's flying around in the dark. Alright, so the frame actually comes with a PDB as well, which is nice, a nice little inclusion, so you don't have to buy another one. And something I loved about this one, it has a 5-volt output and also a 12-volt out as well. So if you want to run your flight controller or something like that, takes 5 volts, you can hook that up directly to this PDB. Or if you've got some FPV gear that needs to be stepped up or stepped down to 12 volts, you can run it off this as well. So it's really nice to see some PDBs out there, even coming with the budget frames that provide these 5-volt and 12 volts out, because they're so important for all our quadcopter sort of needs. In terms of the props, you can't really see them just here, but they're sort of your standard diatone gem fan looking ones. They're 50/30s, but the one cool thing about these is they are clear, so hopefully they light up and look awesome as they're flying around. They should see some little flying discs out there. So now it's time to put all this kit together, and I've got to be honest, I don't think it's going to be as strong as some of the carbon fiber frames, so I'm not going to put any FPV gear on this one. I'm mainly going to use this one for flying around the back footy oval behind my house, and because of these great LEDs on here, it should be really good for line of sight flying, and it'll be great for the dog to chase as well, because Charlie loves chasing them. Alright, so we're going to put it together and see how it goes. Now, as far as what we're going to be putting into this Ghost V4, we're going to be putting in some of the things that I had in my very first quad. So these components here, I'm recycling them, and they're coming from my very first quad, which was a 250 Emax Nighthawk. So we've got some 2204 2300 kV Emax motors and some Simon K Emax 12 amp ESCs. I've taken the heat shrink off and stuff like that a long time ago, but that's what's underneath here. I've got the first flight controller overboard, so a trusty Naze 32 and a D4R2, which I've ripped off the outside casing as well back in the day to sort of reduce a little bit of weight. So we're going to be putting these into our quad and we'll have a look at how they go. Alright, so I've just been doing a little bit of planning here, and we've got this, looking at their PDB, which is great because it's also covered in LEDs on the bottom, and that's going to sit inside the bottom of the frame here, and we've got our 36 by 36 millimeter sort of holes here. That's your standard Naze flight controller. But once I sit that in there, or regardless of which way it is, I've got no actual way to, that I can see anyway, to mount my Naze on top of that. So I'm actually going to switch out this PDB, if I can get this back out, and I'm going to put in an old PDB I have, and that way it can go straight into these little mounting holes just here. So a little improvement, maybe this guy in the V4 Ghost, what they could do, they could actually have some little holes in here, or make this a smaller PDB that fits with the mounting holes here. Also, there was no way to screw this down unless I wanted to actually drill through the plastic just here. So I'm going to start using one of these smaller PDBs in this build, and this is also recycled off my first quad as well. It's still got the 12 volt and the 5 volt output, so it'll be exactly the same, it's just a little bit smaller, and I'll be able to mount it in here properly. Alright, now wiring this up is going to be super easy because the ESCs and the motors are already all connected, and I know which one is which. So our motors are 1, 2, 3 and 4, so I've just got to hook them up to my positive and ground on this little stack and add in a battery connector lead. Alright, and now I just need to hook up the positive and negatives for each of these ESCs, and then that's pretty much it for our soldering. Very simple. Alright, so now for the last little bit of soldering, what we need to do, we need to set up our LEDs just here so they can connect to our PDB. So I'm just going to pre-tin these just here to make it a bit easier when we're soldering. Now we're going to connect some wires so we can run some power to our LEDs, and we're going to use the wire that actually came with the frame. So I'm just going to cut this into 4 semi-even lengths just here. Alright, so there's our 4 lengths of wire, and we're going to attach each of these to these just here. And a good trick with solder, that's why we pre-tin it, so it can make it so much easier when we're going to solder it on. All you've got to do is dab it on and they'll just meld together. 4. There we go. Alright, so now before I solder them in, I do need to check which ones are which, because I'm trying to find, I want to have the green at the front, so I'm just going to hook this up just here, and okay, so this one is going to go towards the front, it's a green one, and then I'm going to guess this is green as well, I'm feeling lucky. Woo! Alright, double greens at the front, and we'll have the reds at the back. Alright, so now we're going to solder in our LEDs, very similar to the way we soldered in our ESCs. So we'll put all the negatives over this side, the grounds over this side, and our positives over here. Alright, so that's it for the soldering. Now we can actually put this mess of wires inside the frame and see how it goes. Alright, so the way this is going to work, my D4R2 is going to be mounted underneath my little stack just here. I have my PDB and my Naze on top of this. But one thing I did have to do, they had these little annoying raised sections in the 36 by 36 holes, and it was too long for my standoff screws to go through, so I just had to drill those out a little bit. So I don't know why it was raised a little bit when it wouldn't even connect to the original PDB. I guess it's to hold it off the ground a little bit, but who knows. So perhaps either put 36 by 36 holes in the PDB or get rid of the little raised parts there so we can mount a different one. So that'll hold my battery just there. And now this is where my D4R2 is going to go. So that's just going to sit just here, and my nays and PDB will be stacked on top. Alright, so let's have a look at this mess, and this is the PDB and all the LEDs, but once we untangle it, we'll find that it'll fit nicely on here. So give me a second, I'll untangle these Christmas lights and put them on. Alright, so my nays is all plugged in. It's not the prettiest quad, but that's not what I built it for. I didn't build it for looks. Well, I built it for looks, but at night time, really, in the dark. So it didn't have to be the cleanest build, but I think it's turned out pretty well. We've got our stack just here. Now I just need to find a way to hold down these ESCs, and I think I'm going to use some electrical tape, actually, because these LEDs have some of their terminals exposed just here, and I don't want that to land on some wet grass or something like that, and it's going to short out. So I'm probably just going to duct tape, electrical tape over this to hold down the ESCs. I'll probably lose one or two LEDs, but I think that's well worth the trade-off so it doesn't short circuit there. Alright, so here it is all finished and all built, ready to go. There's a couple of things I changed in the final build. So I didn't put any of the legs on because I felt like they're just going to be too flimsy in a crash, even though it is a polycarbonate sort of really tough plastic. Coming in at some speed, and it's a pretty heavy, pretty chunky sort of frame, I think it's definitely, these are going to be the first things to break, so I'm going to get rid of them. And it's also going to just rest on my battery underneath just here, so that's what it's going to be landing on, so it won't actually need those feet. Another thing I didn't use is I didn't need these motor adapters because I'm not using 1306 motors, so I'm using the 2204 Emax motors, so I didn't need to use those, which was nice. And I really like this little top canopy thing. I don't think it really does much. I don't know how much protection it offers, but just with my nays, little stack here, and my header pins, it's just not going to fit no matter which way I do it, so I'm just not going to have that on there either. But I don't plan to crash this thing too often. This is more just a fun thing floating around the park with line of sight. It's not something I'm going to be racing through trees or anything like that. So just before we weigh it in, I'm going to show you what it looks like with the LEDs, because I think that's definitely the biggest draw card about this cheap frame. And so you can see there, even though I've got some lights, I'll turn, oh, hang on, excuse it. So I'm just going to quickly turn these lights out, and you can definitely see that it's going to look really cool at night time. Alright, so it feels pretty heavy compared to some of my other quads, so let's weigh the thing here, and this is without the battery, and it's coming in at 303 grams, so yeah, pretty heavy quad. I'm about to leave you with some flight footage of Charlie chasing this thing around the back oval. For more FPV content, subscribe, and as always, happy flying! And here he is all puffed from running around. He's absolutely exhausted. Alright, see you guys.